this is Animad, and welcome back to the Muppet Vlog. Now, this time we're going to be looking into the 11th episode of Season 5 of The Muppet Show, which features Paul Simon. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with Paul Simon, he actually started his career as one half of the duo of Simon and Garfunkel, where they sang many popular songs including The Sound of Silence, Mrs. Robinson, and Bridge Over Troubled Water. But then after they split up in 1970, Paul Simon actually went on to have a very prominent career both as a guitarist and a solo artist. In total, Paul Simon actually has gathered 16 Grammy Awards, including a few for Album of the Year and even a Lifetime Achievement Award. And on top of that, he was also known to be the first ever recipient of the Library of Congress Gershwin Prize of Popular Song. So definitely one of the biggest names in music out there. And when we look into the episode of The Muppet Show that he is featured in, yeah, they actually did an amazing job to really commemorate this episode entirely to Paul Simon. In fact, this is the first ever episode where every single song that is sung in here, or at least that's sung in its entirety, it's all from one artist, which in this case is Paul Simon. Now, these songs would actually include Scarborough Fair, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, Long Long Day, what else? El Condor Pasa, Baby Driver, and Loves Me Like a Rock. So every single one, they completely devoted to nothing like but Paul Simon. Like, there isn't anything like an opening number that's a different song, or somewhere in the middle it's something that's, like a random song that could be from the old times or something like that. No. Every single one is devoted to Paul Simon. And, you know, it's actually very interesting to actually bring in someone like Paul Simon. Because the thing is, the style that Simon would bring in, like especially with his music, it's more like down to earth, it's very calming. Like, the best way that I could put it is that it's a lot of the opposite of what the Muppets usually is. Like, Paul Simon wouldn't necessarily be the first special guest star you would think of to actually appear in the Muppet Show, considering that like, it's very soft tone. Sometimes they could be a bit of like sad songs in a way. They're not meant to be like cheering up songs. And a lot of it is more like it's simple, it's calm, it's supposed to be a bit like relaxing music, where in contrast of the Muppet zaniness, well, that's an entirely different story. But admittedly, a lot of them that they executed is actually done extremely well, and probably the best moment in this episode has to hands down be Scarborough Fair, which is actually said to be the most complex number that they had to create in a technical level, especially with all the different sets, the costumes, to like mainly make everything to look very reminiscent to a Renaissance fair. Like, they really went far with this one, and not only do the sets look really impressive, but what I really appreciate about it is that they actually did successfully know how to perfectly blend the Muppet zaniness with a Paul Simon song, and it actually does work. And even Paul Simon actually has a few funny bits there too. So yeah, that was definitely fantastic. While all the other ones are more straightforward in its execution, like Long Long Day was actually played in his dressing room while all the other Muppets would slowly but surely just watch him play, or Love Me Like a Rock is one that, again, it's straightforward, and it's mostly a bit in a rock setting where you see the Electric Mayhem in the back playing their instruments, and you see Paul Simon in the front with some back singers. So yeah, like a lot of it is just straightforward, really. And then you would also have some of them that are more executed like a joke, like some of which El Condor Pasa or Baby Driver, they're more meant to be a little bit parodies. Like, you got Bobby Benson and his baby band singing Baby Driver a little bit, and then you also have Gonzo and his chicken singing El Condor Pasa. But it's all meant just for the fun of it, you know. It's mostly to really, like, a big reminder that this is supposed to be the Muppet Show, and we need to add in some zaniness into it, instead of just, like, the calmness of Paul Simon, you know. Like, usually Paul Simon would be more like a calm river, but then you gotta have, like, a crazy animal coming in just splashing around. You know, that's basically the best analogy that you can make for having Paul Simon as a special guest star in the Muppet Show. Now, in terms of the plot, or whatever's been happening in between, it's actually pretty interesting, considering that it's mostly about Gonzo, who is actually very inspired by Paul Simon to where he wants to be a songwriter. And yeah, like, a lot of it doesn't necessarily go far. It's a very simple plot, but, you know, it actually does bring out a lot of good jokes, and even have Paul Simon interact with Gonzo as well. And then, like, the reason why I say that, like, almost, like, maybe, like, all the songs are from one artist, well, kind of. Like, the reason why I said that was actually because there was at one point where Gonzo sang his original song called, For You. And in there, like, Gonzo would just, like, let me just read you a little bit of, the lyrics, apparently. Okay, so, for you, I'd wash my hair with stinky glue. I'd fry my legs and eat them too. I'd put a spider in my shoe for you. So yeah, like, if you would consider how crazy his stunts usually are, yeah, imagine that when you put that as lyrics for a song. So that's kind of the result that you would end up. So yeah, it's more the kind of plot that's more set up to bring out jokes than it is to actually develop characters or to tell a story or anything like that. It's more of a comedic, simple plot where the jokes would carry the rest. And before I continue, I almost forgot to mention this, but right in the middle, you do actually get an extra veterinarian's hospital and also a Muppet's Newsflash. The Muppet Newsflash, I gotta say, it's one of those unexpected but really funny moments. And the veterinarian's hospital, they actually got Gonzo as a patient. And admittedly, this is one of the funnier episodes of Veterinarian's Hospital. Like, they were actually good and quick on their feet to bring out the jokes. Like, I was actually pretty impressed, and I was laughing the whole way through. It was a lot of fun. So anyways, overall with this episode, I would have to say that I am very impressed. Maybe this would be for a specific audience, but for what it's trying to do, it actually succeeded extremely well, down to the point that I would even say that this is a great highlight of the season. They would use Paul Simon very well and completely devote this entire episode to just Paul Simon, just sticking to nothing but his songs. And on top of that, you also get a few funny moments at the same time. Like, sure, you got the calm music of Paul Simon, but you also get the Muppet zaniness as well. And there are a lot of moments that I would say that the two would actually blend pretty well. And you do get some great moments like the Scarborough Fair scene. So, honestly, this is not the kind of Muppet Show that you would normally expect, where, like, you would always expect craziness and stuff like that. Like, this is an absolute must-watch for anyone who is a Paul Simon fan, or just a Simon and Garfunkel fan. Like, if you're a fan of Paul Simon's works in any way, then absolutely go and check out this episode of The Muppet Show. Like, they really did the guy justice, along with adding in their own little Muppet flair. So, yeah, it really is enjoyable. Maybe it's for a specific audience, since it might not be as crazy as many other Muppet Show episodes, but for what it did, it succeeded beautifully. But anyways, that is pretty much it for this episode of the Muppet Vlog, so I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching, and we shall see if in the next episode maybe the execution could be as well as the Paul Simon episode, but we can have a little bit more craziness. But we will only know until next time, so see you later, dudes!